Right, welcome back to the Apprentice One-to-One podcast. I'm your host, Mark Allison. And today I've got another new guest. This is someone I've been connected with for a number of years over on LinkedIn. It's a gentleman called Craig Gallagher. He's up from north of the border, so you don't just need a translator for me on this episode. You're going to need another one for the Scottish accent as well. So how are you doing, Craig?
I'm good, buddy. How are you?
I am very good, very good. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. Before we dive too far into things, then let's just learn a little bit more about you. How did you come into the electrical industry first and foremost?
Well, a kind of funny one. At school, back in our kind of day, we were given a sheet and it had apprenticeships that you could take through the council. And it was like a painter, a greenkeeper, a plumber, electrician, and I think it was something else. And the electrician had the most money. They made the most money per hour. So I basically said that I'm going to go for that. And then we went to a kind of training development. It was part of the local council at the time. But unfortunately, I didn't actually pass the exam. Well, I did pass the exam, but I didn't actually get taken on with the council. Probably a good thing now. And lucky enough, my brother was working for a big local facilities management company at the time, and he offered me an apprenticeship in that company, and lucky enough I went in there. To be honest, didn't know anything about electrics, didn't know anything about what an electrician did, nothing at all. It was genuinely just a job, wanted money and get into it. Straight away, when I first kind of got my feet into the door with the company, I loved it. I loved the kind of buzz. I loved what electricians were doing, and quite quickly I kind of found that this was the right thing for me. So I kind of stumbled across it, to be honest, and I was very lucky and fortunate. And the company I served my time with was a huge, good organisation, very local. It's a company called EJ Steel. EJ Steel then got bought over by McAlpine, who then got bought over by Carillion. So it was a very good organisation to be involved in.
Yeah, so I mean, it's quite a common story of people starting out in trades. Mine's similar to yours. You kind of don't really know exactly what you're doing, and you end up falling into it. But it's worked out very well for you, because now you have a thriving compliance business. You're not just involved with the world of electricals, I believe. You take care of a whole range of other things as well. And is that with Quinnergy? Is that how you say it? Am I saying that right?
Yeah. So Quinnergy, I don't know if you can see it.
I can see that.
So basically, Quinnergy, we started Quinnergy up. We got the name. My son's called Quinn, and then we put energy together, so Quinn and Energy. I seen a wee niche market. My partner Sarah's got a letting agency, and I seen a kind of niche for compliance for landlords and letting agents, and it's a legal requirement, so it's something that has to be done. So she was struggling to get electricians to be doing EICRs and PAT testing, and actually providing her with the certificates quick enough so that she could get tenants moved in. And so I was working offshore at the time, and I was coming home and doing kind of EICRs. Just that was all I was doing, and then just thought this should be done in a kind of better scale. Should be done, and then I kind of everyone does the same when it comes to a business, or you get the same kind of same mentorship. Where have a look at how McDonald's run or a fast food chain, and see if you can mimic the systems in place for that. So that's what I did. I was quite high up in kind of facilities management, contracts management, and maintenance management. So I took the applications from that side and tried to bring it into a smaller domestic scale. So that's using the kind of best of software, the best of equipment, honing down on how many minutes it takes for an admin person to book in jobs, to speak to tenants, how long it takes for an electrician or a gas engineer to go collect keys from a letting agency, go to the job, get it done, and then pass it on to the landlord. So kind of seen that niche and thought, right, let's go for it. That was 4 years ago, and it's took a couple of years to get to where we are just now. Can dive into it a wee bit further later on if you want to ask some more questions first, and then I can go into the kind of applications of what we do and how we do it.
Yeah, lovely. That would be great to learn more there. I mean, it's important for apprentices to hear how someone who does start out just falling into this trade as now a business owner in their own right with a thriving and successful company there. It can happen. It's happened for Craig. It's happened for lots of other people who've been on already. We've spoken to Neil too. So it's not just a case of you have to stay in the world of out on the tools. I don't think, are you out on the tools day to day anymore, Craig, or are you more office based now?
Not as much day to day. Yeah, I think if it's an overspill, I go out and do a lot of testing. I'm not doing any of the kind of hands-on workmanship stuff. I've got a kind of small works manager, Ross Donald, so he looks after the teams that are all out and about. Again, multidiscipline, not just electrical now. We're doing gas and plumbing. So he now runs all the kind of guys out and about. I'm just now concentrating on kind of business development and marketing.
Brilliant.
And going around all the clients, making sure everything's okay. So I mean, I started out industrial, commercial, then I was into high voltage. Basically for 10 years, I was doing all high voltage. It was switchgear maintenance, so completely different to what we're doing just now. So it just goes to show, like, once you go down one avenue with one company, it's great to learn that kind of experience, and then you can try and move on to the other, but you have to do that in your own way. You have to either self-learn or be ready for adjustment and take it on board. I think if you learn the principles, then you can use that for your advantage in different sectors of either electrical industry or the construction industry in total, because a lot of the guys I serve my time with are all contracts managers now. They're all facilities managers or maintenance engineers in the electrical trade, but they've used their background to move on to somewhere else.
Yeah, no, that's interesting to hear, because it is quite common that as you get older, you just naturally fall into different areas of the industry. But pulling it back towards apprentices, I've got you on especially to speak about things up in Scotland, because it is a little bit different to how it is for us down in England. There's a couple of parts of an apprenticeship system that aren't quite the same. One of those, from speaking with people through Apprentice 1-to-1, is to do with AM2. I think it's called something different up there, and it might be a slightly different process. Do you have any information that might be able to help people on that one?
Well, yeah, it's called a FICA test. Well, I don't even know if that's actually changed again. Last year, it was called your FICA test. So basically, it's just the same as AM2. I think I did AM2. So after your final assessments, you've got to go in and you go into a booth and you've got to wire, do fault finding, and then you do a multiple choice question at the end of your assessment. But then after that, you have to do like continued assessments, and then you've got to hand in your logbook at the end of it. So that is maybe the thing that's maybe slightly different. I'll need to ask a couple of our apprentices if they hand in a logbook before their final assessment or if it's after the final assessment. So I think you've got to pick out 5 jobs, and you've got to explain what you've done from start to finish, and you've got to show it, document it by drawings, paperwork, pictures and stuff like that.
Brilliant.
And then you can get your trade card after that.
Oh, that's really good to hear. I think that's quite a good idea, actually. I mean, I know with you've got Select up there as well, haven't you? That's a little bit different, and is Part P not actually a thing up in Scotland either? Is that? No,
there's no Part P. Well, I think you can have Part P, but it's not registered or not recognised up here, so it's quite confusing. You have Sect, who are the Scottish electrical kind of joint industry. They look after the kind of training, the apprenticeships. They're the kind of union for it. Then you've got Select. Select is a bit like the NIC, EIC, which just another it's just a Scottish government body, and that's who actually approve us. So they come out and do their auditing on us. But Sect and Select are different. So Sect is your training. That's where all your coursework goes to. That's who passes you off. That's who looks after you when you're in college. They try their hardest to try and find apprentices positions if they get made redundant or kind of lose their job or anything like that. That's who you would go to for help up in Scotland.
I see. So they're a little bit. It sounds a little bit like JTL down here, but maybe a little bit bigger and better, I would have said, from some of the things you're saying that they actually do, because we've had a few people getting in touch who've been through JTL of late, and they haven't got the best stories, to be honest. So it's nice to hear that things up in Scotland might be a little bit better on that front.
Yeah, it is. When I was at college, it was the SIJB, Scottish Joint Industry Board, I think, and I think that was across, not just electrical, I think that was across the full board. So they set up the pay structure and how many days you go to college in your first year, second year, third year, all that kind of stuff, and they set out the qualifications with NVQs. Now it's just set, but they're really good. I get maybe a phone call once a week from the training officer, just asking how the guys are getting on, well, guys and girls. We've got girl electricians as well, girl apprentices as well. So they phone all the time, and he always gives an update on companies that are going bust and apprentices are being made redundant, or they're maybe not happy with the company they're with and they want to go down different avenues. So I've took on apprentices that way that have been made redundant, take them on, and you're offered a grant if you take somebody on that's been made redundant.
Really?
You actually get it's £5,000 you get.
Wow.
as a company to take them on. That's a great incentive. And also, you are helping people. That I feel really bad for the ones that have been made redundant, especially in their third and fourth year.
Yeah.
Um,
It's awful,
so
isn't it? And it sounds like you've got some quite nice support up there in Scotland. We can maybe learn a thing or two sort of south of the border, because there's nothing like that here at all. That's really good to hear. I wasn't actually aware of that, Craig, so you've taught me something there. And this is all purpose of having this chat through the Apprentice One-to-One podcast, because there's people getting in touch with me from Scotland, and I'm not the best person to give that advice. So, if you are listening and you do want to find out more about this, Craig's maybe someone you want to be hitting up if you have any questions about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best thing to do is your training officers in your college. So there's certain training officers for certain regions in Scotland. Always have them as your friends. They're there to help you all the time. They're not here to judge you on how well you're doing or how bad you're doing. They're here to help, if you know what I mean. The best thing an apprentice should do is, if they're struggling on any aspect of something, is actually own up to it. There's nothing cool about trying to be cool in college and being there for the sake of it. Once you've finished college, you are out on your own. If you do not know what you're doing, then you'd easily find out, and then you're not got a job. You've got nothing to fall back on with apprenticeship. When you're an apprentice, you're under the stigma of you're still learning. So you're given second, third, fourth, fifth chances. You're shown how to do things. As soon as you've got that trade card and you're asking people to do work for them, they expect you to know what you're doing. That is a slightly daunting process as well. So somebody who was learning yesterday, got their trade card today, looking to get £15, £16 an hour, and then can't do certain things that you want them to do. And they don't appreciate that as a business, you've got to keep clients happy. Their clients are keeping their clients happy. Then you could have people that are inside a shop that need this work done, or houses, and you're just turning up just for the sake of turning up for work. So if you really don't understand what it is you're doing, you need to ask, because once you're out there, it's on your head kind of thing. And if it doesn't work out, then you'll not have a job. The best thing to do is just learn, enjoy your trade, and be the best at what you can be at it, and you'll succeed at whatever you want to do.
That's fantastic advice. I mean, we've heard this a few times from other people as well about asking questions. When you're in an apprenticeship, it's the perfect time to be asking. You've got all that knowledge around you. Don't let it sit there idly by. If you've got a question, you're not sure on something, ask the guys and girls who are with you. Most people are always more than happy to help. I've certainly given that help to people who don't even work for my business when they've asked. And I'm sure Craig will have done as well in the past. Most electricians are more than happy to help an apprentice out. And like Craig just alluded to, once you've finished your time and you're expected to know what you're doing, if you don't, you soon get found out. So, embrace that apprenticeship process and ask those questions. It's
much easier to ask when you're an apprentice than it is when you're meant to be a kind of so-called adult or electrician. Because if you're asking questions being an electrician, it then just brings warning signs or highlights the fact that you don't know what you're doing, and then you're sometimes not really given a second chance because we don't have enough time. The job just needs done.
Yeah, I mean, you're dead right. You're dead right. In a pressured world of a business world, when you're paid a proper salary to do a job, people are going to expect you to do it. So you are spot on there. You need to be finding out your ins and outs of your trade while you're learning. And just speaking on that, while we are kind of in that area, it's specifically in the domestic world, it's not just kind of electrics you get involved with, is it? I mean, I've had this discussion with some of my apprentices in the past about knocking around some of the other trades when you are on site and picking up tips and skills from them as well, because we get involved with things like chopping out walls, lifting floorboards, drilling holes through great big stone walls. There's all sorts you can pick up from the chippies and the brickies, even the plasterers. Do you find that as well with your guys? Do you try and get them a bit of experience with some of the other trades as well?
We because we're multidisciplined, we send all our guys out with different trades at different times. We're also even getting our guys to come into the office and see how the office team work, and we're getting the office team to go out and see how the guys work, so that everyone gets a proper understanding. And I think it's key for apprentices to know or to see how floors are getting lifted, how they get put back down, how to put it down properly, how to cut holes out at a wall to fish from one side to the other, because that is part of your job. See if you can do that part good, you're a better electrician. When you cut something out of a wall and you just walk away and leave it, nobody respects you for what you're doing. They don't want you to come back. So if you can reinstate what it is you've had to lift or cut or move, then you end up becoming a next level up. You end up getting more work, then people want you to do more stuff. They feel confident that you can take you to other jobs. So I think that's key, and I think that's down to pride as well. A lot of that's down to pride and being proud of what it is you're doing and showcasing that you're really good at it. I think if you leave a job the way you found it, you're much more respected than what you are if you just leave it like a tip. Yeah, and that's not just tidying up. That is like if you've cut a hole in the ceiling, cut it properly so that you can put a wee dwang above it and put the bit of gyprock back on. And there's loads of good guys on YouTube that will show you how to do this, good electricians that show you how to do it, good joiners. So I think that's a side of an apprenticeship that you don't get taught in college, but there should be maybe a wee element of that brought into your training, i.e. if it's your company that does it or the college that does it. But I think that's good, a good point, that you should be learning off other trades and using it in your own kind of scenarios.
Yeah, 100%. There's a lot of people who've been in touch through Apprentice 1-to-1 kind of saying they're stuck on industrial sites learning the trade, or they're just used as cheap labour and they don't feel like they're getting even the electrical training they need. So, I mean, you referencing YouTube is a great shout. If anyone is struggling with some of the knowledge that they might need to go out and work in a domestic environment, or even pick up little bits of tips to do with electrical stuff, there is absolutely tons of content on there now. Go and look it up, because you can learn absolutely anything. And like Craig said, when you come to be out on site doing stuff, if you can sort of task out for someone, solve a problem rather than make one, then you're going to be the person who they keep getting back to do work rather than the person they never ask back ever again. So that's a great shout.
I always remember the very first time like somebody said to me, I want a socket the other side of the wall, like I want a socket over there but there's one here, and just looking at it for like an hour going, how do I do this? I've been doing conduit and tray and armours and pumps and working in switchboards, and what do I do here? I didn't even know how to lift a carpet. I didn't even know what way joists ran, how the floorboards went up and down, how to cut them across the joists, all that stuff. And then even when you get the cable across, how do you get it up into the cavity wall, or all these things? So that is what's great about YouTube, and that's what's also great about asking people. Again, key, if you don't know something, you've never seen it before, research it yourself, try and get a level understanding from it, and then try and practice. In our office, we put up some boards, and we try and get them to change the boards in and out, show them how to cut out gyprock. You'd be surprised at how many people don't know how to cut out a gyprock box, cut it too big, and then if the fast fix box falls through the hole. Just all these things. Learning all this is also part of your trade. It's not just about learning about electricity, it's learning how to do your trade properly.
Yeah. Another question I want to ask you, and this is because you're an employer primarily. Quite a few apprentices ask this question a lot. It's kind of, what's the best way to approach an employer to try and get an interview? So this might be someone who's maybe not even advertising. How can you get yourself ahead of some other people who are searching for jobs? Because there's a lot of people looking for work right now. Do you have any kind of advice for someone if they're looking for an employer? How's the best way to approach them? Is it a traditional CV, or do you prefer people picking up the phone? What's your thoughts on that?
Genuinely, I'll be very honest, right? The amount of people we've employed, I don't think I've ever read a CV. I mean, I don't know if that is a good thing or a bad thing. But another point of that is I'm very, very dyslexic. So for me, reading a couple of pages of stuff, I would only read the first couple of paragraphs, and then I would switch off anyway. My attention span's gone. So for me, a lot of it's down to word of mouth through the training officer. So as I said, most of our stuff came through the training officers. But recently, maybe 5 or 6 guys that we've started in the last maybe 4 or 5 months have all came through social media. So you want to be able to stand out. You don't realise how powerful your own personal social media can be. Like, you can get a feel of how people are through what they do day to day, what they do at night, what they do at weekends. And again, that might be a bad thing as well, because you're maybe looking at a snapshot of who they are as a person, but it gives you a feel of who they are and what they're doing, and
that's
what kind of person.
That's a good shout. I mean, there's a few people who set up specific social media accounts to try and attract employers, showcasing their work and also showcasing the kind of people they are as well outside of work. So, that's maybe a more modern way of approaching it. So, if you are out there...
I think social media for me is key. I try to take people on that are into social media or into marketing because I want to use them as leverage to push out our brand and do our marketing in our social media. So if you can show that you're confident and you can showcase your own work, then that shows me that you're confident with what you're doing and you're happy to show it rather than hiding it and just turning up to get a wage at the end of the week. So I think that's maybe a good point. The second point would be is like offer trials. Like say, I'm willing to come and work for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, get a feel for me, offer to do things that you wouldn't think you would want to do as an apprenticeship. I mean, my first 3 or 4 weeks being an apprenticeship, it was like washing vehicles, cutting unistrut, filing unistrut, cleaning the stores out, cleaning the vans, making tea, making coffee, doing all these things, carrying people's tools. And again, I don't know if that's right or wrong, whether it's like slave labour or taking advantage of things, but it put me in good stead. It gave me...
It's a start, isn't it? That's kind of what it is. If you want to get involved in something, showing you're willing to do those things, it's not so much slave labour. We all go through that process. It's just the effort you make to try and get noticed at the end of the day and build into that electrical apprenticeship. We all have to start at the bottom, essentially, don't we? And making people a brew is one of those tasks.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the thing is that you've got to realise you're not this prima donna young boy or young girl that's thinks that they know everything and can do anything and money's kind of no object, they'll get it. I think when you realise, when you hit rock bottom or when you realise you don't have a job and the money stopped coming in, you're not getting it from the college or the government or your mum and dad anymore, you start to realise like I need to actually do something here. So I think get yourself known on social media, push things about, try and get yourself noticed, share the company's posts that you want to maybe get involved in, turn up at the door, chat the guy's door, like be in his face in a nice way, obviously, and just turn up, just ask if there's anything they can do.
It's great advice. That is great advice.
I don't think an email with a CV cuts it anymore. Like, see, I'm looking on my computer now. I've got 4,000 emails that I've not read over the last year.
Yeah, it's such a common story of business owners that it's a hard place to get attention in a big load of emails, isn't it? Because we are swamped with stuff. So yeah, you make a good point. And there's other people who've come on and said they still prefer a traditional CV. And I guess if you're making a post available for someone and you're advertising it on a typical job board, you might ask for CVs coming back in against that to review. But if you're just trying to chance some of the local companies, social media is a good way to go.
I think the CVs is basically a paper exercise that if you're given 50 CVs in front of you, you're just going to pick the one out that has maybe the best grammar. It looks like he's got the best experience, but he doesn't. See, if an apprentice, even a second year apprentice, was to mark down every job he'd been on, everything that he's done, all the kind of points, his CV would look amazing. But then you get somebody who's not very good, like myself. I couldn't write a good CV, I couldn't write a good covering letter. But I would probably be better. I'm not saying I'd be better than somebody else, but I might be better than the person who's wrote a really good CV. So you're not actually getting a feel for that person. And I know that's not what some apprentices might want to hear because, as you say, some companies do want a CV, some don't. But that's the thing. If you get yourself out there, you hopefully will get more than one opportunity and the right company will take you on. But just being real and being yourself is probably the best thing to do.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's the idea of this podcast. We're kind of getting people's thoughts and opinions. Everybody's different. There's all different ways of approaching this. And the more information apprentices get for how best to tackle it is good. Switching this back onto the employers as well, just for a second, because you are an employer. There's a number of those guys getting in touch as well who are, wanting to make that first step into taking an apprentice on. So if you wind yourself back a few years when you were kind of getting to the level where you were thinking you needed a bit of help in your business, I've been there when you make that first step of employing somebody and it's scary, it's daunting, you don't think it's the right thing to do, you'll try and talk yourself out of it. Eventually I shoved myself over that line. Was it similar for you, or did you just jump straight in feet first?
No, it was very difficult. I mean, as an employer, the first thing I did was, when the company was first set up, was bring in an administrator. So I've got a girl, Amy, who's been with me from day one, who basically runs the company in the kind of background, or the administrating. The type of work that we do, there's a lot more admin than there is trades in it. So I brought that in because A, I couldn't do it, and B, there's no way I was going to cope with it. And hey, what I realised is all our work was from letting agents or housing associate, or at the very start it was just like a letting agent, a couple of private people, and just out marketing. So I was doing the marketing and doing the work, and Amy was doing all the admin in the background. We had that going for about a year, doing 7 days a week, 14 hours, 20 hours, constantly working. But my head was always in building a brand and building, just keeping to my core business, which was just compliance. I wasn't interested in going out and rewiring somebody's house or fitting outside lights. I stuck to the core, which is key, I think. But you're knocking back work, which you think, oh, I could do with the money, but it takes you away from your core business. And then if somebody phones you up and says, I need an EICR done tomorrow, and you're busy fitting some heaters on somebody's, you can't then do that EICR. So then that client goes to somebody else, and that one client could have gave you 1,000 houses every 5 years to do EICRs on. You need to be very patient, and you need to stick to your focus. If you want to hone in on a niche, then you do that. So we did that for like a year, and then it got to a stage where we were just stretched, we'd overworked, and I wanted to bring on an electrician. In my head, I just think I can't afford this. I've never had any funding. We've never had any loans. We've got no credit. All our vans are bought. We've got no overdrafts. Everything's ours. So it was very daunting to think, this guy's going to be getting 2-3 grand a month. Where can I find this money? Again, stumbled across an adult trainee who was keen as mustard, wanted to get involved in the electrical industry, already knew most about it. So that's what he done, brought him on, and he came with me for the first wee while. He learned how I do things, he learned how the business works. I trained him on what I wanted him to be doing inside the business. He went out, then the work doubled, and then very quickly it just kept going. So before that, I was using subcontractors to pick up like my gas side of work, my plumbing, electrical, remedial stuff. And then I realised, if I can afford to be paying them, I should be having my own guys. But it was the hardest thing I've ever done. Letting go of that control and allowing the responsibility to be on somebody else for your own baby is probably the hardest thing to do. And I think as an apprentice or somebody that's going to go and work for a company, it might be different going to work for a big company, but if you're going to work for a small independent company that's been kind of man-made with no investment, you need to be respectful for what that boss or what that owner, that company owner has went through and what he is still going through to give you work and to pay you and to make sure you still have work. And I think being respectful and thankful is a big key, and being proud to wear that brand or that company t-shirt. And every time you drive a van, just realising that everything that you do has an impact, whether you go through a red light or if you let somebody out of a junction or if you say hi to somebody or if you help an old lady or an old man or you do something. All these have massive impacts on that brand or that company. So when you bring somebody on, it's very daunting. So you just want them to respect your company and what you've done.
Yeah, it feels like a big risk, doesn't it? I've been sat there myself, and you're just not quite sure if it's gonna pan out. And there's lots of people who are in that position, I think, all over the place. And you're one of the success stories. So, I mean, it's important that people hear that this can work. It can help grow a business. You employ more than one person now. I think that's fair to say, isn't it, Craig?
Yeah, we're up about 30 people now, I think.
Yeah, you see, so and that's a great size business that you've got there, and all in quite a short period of time, in truth. So well done and fair play to you for that. So if anyone is listening and you are kind of thinking of taking an apprentice on and making that leap, certainly south of the border, I think this applies in Scotland as well, that there is some extra grants available till the end of January. I would have to ask Craig if he's aware of that, just to double check on that. But
I was just to go back on the grant thing. There is a small grant from the government or the Scottish government or the local councils. It's all to do with the council. So some councils give you a grant if you take on an apprentice under a certain age, but I actually got the redundancy money is different from the grant. If there's an apprentice being made redundant and you take them on, then you get the money from the training development company.
Right.
So grants are not the same. I think England actually give out more money to take on apprentices or actual help with their pay a lot more than Scotland. So once if I hadn't taken on somebody that'd been made redundant, I think I would have got about £1,100 for that's it, just a one-off payment.
Yeah.
So I think there needs to be a wee bit more for help, for funding for that in Scotland. I don't know what it's like in England. I think for company owners, they need to get in contact with the training officers, and they're the best people to give you advice on it.
That's a good golden tip there. So we need to all be reaching out to the training officers and see if we can glean some information of those. Just speaking about it as a whole, I've asked a few other people this question. What's your actual opinion on the well, Gary Hayes has told me we don't call it an NVQ anymore, but the NVQ apprentice trained electricians, is it still something that's a valuable qualification and route into the industry to have? Or do you think that's kind of been washed away a bit in the last few years? How do you actually feel it sits at the minute?
Do you know, I've got so many mixed views on it all, and I think
a lot of people have.
Yeah, it's a very, very complex and difficult situation. So I don't know how to kind of start this, but I think this trade should be more specific for what kind of area you're going into. We've touched on this before, like me and yourself, on certain guys doing certain levels of work. I don't know anyone, a handful of people, even through all my connections on LinkedIn and stuff like that could go and maintain a switchboard that's got OCBs on it, or go and maintain a high voltage transformer. A lot of these people don't even know they're filled with oil. The circuit breakers are filled with oil. They don't know the difference between an air circuit breaker, a vacuum circuit breaker, an oil circuit breaker. You've got that side of things, and then you've got the domestic side of things, where the first time somebody asks you to put a wall light up or move a socket or change a fuse box, some of them don't even know what a split load RCD is, what RCBOs are, like the advantages, the disadvantages. But go and give them a length of conduit or tray, and they can go and throw it up and throw some cables up. So they can do that aspect of things good. But then if you were going to section it all off, again, it's not great. So generally, I think there needs to be more inside college. And I think apprenticeships, we should try sharing our apprentices about through different sectors. I don't know how we would be able to do that. I don't know how you'd police it. I don't know how you would get it in place. But we've had guys who have got an industrial and commercial background who really just don't know what they're doing inside a domestic environment. Again, they're electricians, but then we need to train them up again to what we do as a company. Do I rate the NVQ? I think it gives people a good level key. The problem that I've got is, as soon as you've served your apprenticeship, most companies let you go. Like in Scotland,
they do down here as well.
Yeah, they just let you go and then that's you out there. And then before you know it, you're on agency work. What happens is the buzz of it all burns out because you're not confident, or you're not being able to do everything that's been asked for you. And then you lose your enthusiasm, your confidence, and you end up going into something else.
Yeah.
I think there's a period of when you serve your time, there needs to be something then. There needs to be something for the next 12 months that a company can't pay you off, or there's some sort of scheme in place that pushes you into other sectors, and you need to do like advanced driving or advanced training after it. We need to hit 3 or 4 months doing specific tasks, and then that's you qualified, or then that's you able to go and work in different sectors. Yeah,
so more like a licensed or a ticketed system then, I guess, as you're kind of coming out your time, where you're kind of developing different areas you can work within. That's it's a good shout, and I wouldn't disagree with it. You've made some great points in there as well about the agency system, and I spoke with Sam about that actually, because that's sort of what happened to him. He ended up going into agency work after his apprenticeship. It's so common, and maybe it's something that government can look at with a grant system and the way they're weighted, that perhaps you get a tax benefit for keeping an apprentice on a couple of years after the time's finished. I don't know, I'm just throwing that idea out there as we're thinking about it.
I think so. I think it has to be, and I think there has to be more from the training development companies. But it's then, where do they get the funding? So, I mean, all this comes down to funding and money. Like, I don't have enough money to be changing how things are or implementing new things, but we do all try. We give everybody a chance, we push them about. But ultimately, if you're not making money, you can't pay your people, you can't bring them on. So that's something I don't think apprentices actually realise, that what they do actually makes them money to pay for their wage and to keep the business going. They just think that as a company, you've got money in the bank, and because you're doing loads of work, you've got loads of money. Where a lot of the time, when you've got loads of work on, more so with maybe your type of stuff, you're buying a lot of the products, and then you need to pay for the products way before you get your invoice paid, and you need to pay the wages in between all that. If your guys could work as efficiently as possible and look after their tools, their equipment, the materials that's been bought, save their screws, save their raw plugs, save all their bits of cable so that nothing's getting wasted, it's a big, big help for that company you're going to work for. And that's key. That's why a lot of people get paid off, is because a lot of their bosses are going, oh, that wee guy doesn't care, or he's not interested, he just turns up, he's always late, he always wants to come home, he's always got something on, and every time he goes to a job, he loses something or breaks something. So I think just take your time, enjoy what you're doing, and just respect your company and the other trades around about you. You'll go a long way just with those kind of three aspects.
Yeah, that's great tips. And one of the other questions I get, and I'm gonna ask you to rewind in time a little bit again to think how you first started out, is apprentices asking what kind of tools they can kit themselves out with when they're first starting. So I'm thinking of 16, 17-year-olds or new adult entrants coming into the industry. They're asking, what kind of hand tools can I get that set me off being able to do the basics that an employer might want me to do? I mean, I'm sure you kit your people out anyway with the gear they're going to need, but this is keen people who are wanting to be ready to go. What would you be pointing them towards? It doesn't have to be brands, just a basic setup.
Yeah, obviously good screwdrivers. Like, there's a connecting up screwdriver I got, it's a 3.5mm one. I think they've got 4 now. You cannot have enough of them, and you need to look after them. Don't be using the one that you use for connecting up to take out positive or star screws. You keep that good screwdriver for doing your connecting up on. I know now we've got torque drivers and all this kind of thing, but having a good set of pliers and snips and a proper set of screwdrivers and using them screwdrivers correctly is key. And then you can go into the safety aspects of things, having good test lamps, proving units, and a good multimeter so that you can check for polarity, you can check to make sure you've got continuity between all your conductors and your earth. These are all key aspects. And then you can go into your specialist things, how you're going to chisel out walls as efficiently as possible. You're either going to do it by hand or by machine. And then your screw guns, either a multi-purpose, multi-screw drill. These are the kind of things. But then once you've got them, you need to make sure that you're looking after them. They're in a nice bag or in a nice toolbox, that they're not getting damp, they're not getting chucked about. You're not using your pliers as a hammer and your screwdriver as a chisel. I mean, we've all kind of done it. I had a tradesman who used to use a big screwdriver to tighten up armour glands, just hitting it with a hammer. And that was his way of tightening up the lock ring on an armour. So I think looking after your tools, bit of WD-40, cleaning them down, this all comes to respecting who you are, what you do, and how you do it. So I think they're the kind of key. Once you move on in life, you get a bit more money, you can realise what other tools are good.
No, that's good.
I've always had Lucas pliers, but I don't think you get them anymore. The kind of black and grey and blue one.
I know the ones you mean. I haven't seen them for a while though. No, I haven't seen them knocking around.
I've had them for 20 years and I can cut socket screws with them, cut everything. They're still got all their sharpness. Brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good tip. If you can still find some of those, look up the Lucas ones, because I remember them. They're nice.
Yeah, they're amazing, honestly. I remember my electrician saying to me, you won't be an electrician until you've got a set of Lucas pliers.
Yeah, and you make a good point as well about looking after your gear. I mean, you get into good habits of doing stuff like that. I mean, the people who taught me drummed that into me from a very, very early age, that you look after your equipment. It's what makes you your money at the end of the day, be if you're employed or you're working for yourself. They're the things that make the cash. So you want good working order and nice tip.
I'm going to mention something else as well, right? Just quickly. I always had a wee notebook. See, just a wee book, and wrote everything down all the time. What job I was on, how I was doing it, just wee notes, a wee sentence, what time I started at, one time I finished, where I was and stuff like that, because you never know when you need to look back at it. When your employee asks you, where you were at that day, what did you do, how did you do this? So I always had a book, so did everybody I served my time with, but all my guys have got iPads now.
Yeah.
Everything they do, photographs off, all the certificates are online, they're on the iPad. But there's nothing stopping you holding your own wee book and just jotting down things that you're doing and take some pictures with your phone so you can revert back to it. I think that's something that's missed nowadays, is nobody's really recording what they're doing.
Yeah, no, that's another good tip. I mean, I used to do the same as well. So yeah, you can obviously swing some modern technology over it these days, and you can make notes on a picture you've done or a video of what you've done, and refer back to it later on. That's a great idea. So yeah, I would advise people doing that as well. Good shout. Pulling this back a bit towards yourself again and Quinnergy. I've seen some of your posts of late, and you seem to be absolutely flying. I think you've got that new office building that you've opened up fairly recently. So you're thinking about putting a Christmas tree outside of it or not? So I mean, what's the future? What's the future for Quinnergy? You got to 30 people now. Are you still looking to grow? Is it just naturally doing that anyway? What are your plans?
So naturally we are growing. We've outgrown our office already. We've been in it 4 or 5 months now. We kind of got the key just before the first lockdown. We've managed to get all our staff in, but we've outgrown it already. So we're looking at land now, or like an industrial unit. We're still going to keep that wee office, but have a unit now. So yeah, we're going to branch out. We're doing a lot more work now for housing associations, and the tables have turned now. Where I used to go out and sell and do marketing and push and adopt my prices to get the work in, now seems to be that people are coming to us asking us to do the work rather than us trying to get the work, and that's down to sticking to your core business and marketing just what you do, rather than trying to be everything. But you can stick to that, then you can scale up. And then the key in the scaling up is all your processes in the background and how you automate things. So everything's automated in the background for us, and all our admin teams are building up the jobs, building up the certificates. So when the guys go out, all they're literally doing is filling in their test results and the circuit details and stuff. Everything else is done in the office. And then as soon as that certificate's done, there's a wee button on our app. We've got our own software, our own workforce kind of app. As soon as they click complete, everything's sent automatically to that client's email address. It's set up on that. So the certificate's sent, the invoice is sent, and any quotes are sent. It's all automated. It's all built up. To move forward and to grow, you need to look at ways that you can do it in a scalable manner. And it's very hard if you're in the construction side of it, if you're doing installations all the time, because with that, you come across quite a lot of issues and problems on a day-to-day of it. So again, if you can find processes and minimising the risk of what's involved in what you're doing, then you can easily move forward and giving your clients a list of what it is you're going to be doing and how you want the job for you turning up on. I like seeing other people thriving. I've seen yourself thriving as well. We've got Jamie Curry up at Home Rewire Scotland, how he does his processes as well. It's kind of the same line as how we do our processes, and you would never think you would be able to rewire a house in that amount of time, but he can only do it because he has certain processes in place. And it's the same how we can do so many EICRs in a day or a week, or gas safeties in a week, or Legionella checks or smoke alarm checks. It's because the guys are following the same process. When they turn up at the job every day, the guys know exactly what they're doing, the clients know what we're doing, how we're doing it, and then in the background it's all automated. So if you can find some good fancy software to help you, then that's key to move forward. That's how you become better than the person next to you.
Yeah, great tip. And obviously it's beneficial for clients as well. If you've got everything that's automated and electronic or digital, there's going to be no certificates going to be missing in a filing cabinet somewhere. If they need to reference back to a document for an audit or an insurer, it's all there. It's all in one place. They know they're not going to miss any of the next inspections. It kind of takes the human element of making a mistake, losing a document, or forgetting to do something out of it. And for the time in your business and in mine as well, this software, I mean, it saves hours and hours of linking bits of paper together, reminding customers you come in. It all can be taken care of without the involvement of yourself or somebody else, freeing up time to work on the business in other ways. So that's a great shout about using software. And I've seen from a lot of the social media coming from yourselves at Quinnergy that you're all over that. You're leading the way in a lot of ways. I'm still quite new with a lot of this tech. We've only really been using it in our business about 6 months. So we were some of the old dinosaurs still on paper and hitting the phone. And almost immediately, it's made such a drastic difference. So that's a good call for any employers out there.
It is hard to get your head around it and how to use it in your advantage. A lot of people, or a lot of organisations, bring in like ISO 9001, that kind of management process, but they're only doing that to maybe win a tender. They don't actually use the processes to their advantage. We actually use we built our processes, we implemented them, and we use them for our advantage. So you need to make sure it works. If it doesn't work, then you need to find how to change it and how to make it work. Like, I think this year, we've done maybe about 5,500 EICRs, probably even more than that. But on top of that, we've maybe done about 12,000 gas safeties. So, I mean, if you whittle that down, there's a tenant to be contacted for every single one of them. There's a client to be emailed back and forward to. There's a job to go and pick a set of keys up. So if you can get all of them down, if you can shave 5 minutes off every single one of those processes, you've then created another week's worth of work for somebody that can go out and do more things. So if you can keep doing that and thriving to find improvement on every single process, then you will ultimately find more time to do more work. And it goes down to this, I mean, we're going a wee bit off topic here, how people always say, oh, how can you do so many EICRs in a day? It's not one person doing one EICR. My guys go out in teams. It's not one individual person. So one person's doing visual inspections, other one's doing testing, the other one's writing out the certificate. But they're doing it in tandem. They're not doing it as individuals. They're talking to it. I'm doing this. So it's all about communication, all that stuff. And then there could be a gas engineer at the exact same time doing the gas. Then the gas engineer might be doing the pat testing. He might also be checking the smoke alarms. So they can be in there for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and that's the full house done. And that's maybe 5 certificates. And then you'll have somebody, an electrician, moaning, oh, I can only do one EICR in a day. Well, yeah, so could we if it was one person going out. But then the next day, that person might be going and doing a fuse box change. My same teams are going to do EICRs again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day.
Yeah, I mean, I've made those comparisons before and not been clear when I've done it that, you know, one person doing 4 EICRs in a day is ridiculous. But in the posts I've made, I haven't actually referenced the one person part. So you make a very good point that you can streamline it and allocate other people to the task and get more productivity at the end of the day. That's what we're talking about, isn't it? And Jamie does it with his rewires. You referenced him as well. You know, if you put more manpower on it and everyone has their own defined roles within that process, you get more productivity than you would just a guy or a couple of guys going into a house to rewire it. That's just the nature of how humans work. So, you know, if you can identify and make a niche of that yourselves, which you seem to be doing and doing very well in compliance, you know, there's avenues and services you can offer to your customers that other people can't, certainly not in the same time frames. So full credit to you.
The other thing is, like, you've got companies, I don't know if you know Ryan. You know Ryan of the Compliance Notebook.
Yes.
So you've got that in the background. The other side of it is, how do we audit our stuff coming in? So it used to be me and Ross and sometimes Kevin who would audit. We would take a percentage of every EICR that was coming in through the books, and before it was automatically sent on, we would check it, all that stuff. And to be honest, all our guys are good at them, so we don't really have to worry about it. But it was just because some clients are picky. If you're picking up fire-rated downlights or non-fire-rated consumer units or non-RCD, and sometimes they had to be done, sometimes they don't. We were just making sure that the right information was going to the right clients, because some clients are a wee bit harder to deal with and need a bit more information. So that's why we were 50% overseeing it. The other thing was just to make sure that the certs are getting done right. So you can use software that he's got in place where your certificates automatically go through his software, and he checks to make sure that the cert is correct before it goes on to the client. So we use that because we're at a scale, but that kind of software is more suitable for my clients that are getting hundreds or thousands of documents every single day. Before we were doing so many, we didn't need something like that, but now we do need something like that. So again, this is, do I spend the money in having something like that, or do I spend the money in having a guy sitting in the office? This is where processes and software comes into play. You need to weigh it up. It's a big outlay, but you'll never have that outlay ever again. And you don't have to, if there's a guy off, that supervise everything, then if he's off for a week, effectively you can't be sending stuff through. So these are all the things you need to think about, and the big outlays at the start might be beneficial near the end.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves a bit for some of the small employers on there, but it's all part of the process. You make a load of good points there that, you know, you're making that first step into employing someone, then as things grow and develop, utilising software to help you and free up more time and more resources for employing actual electricians. And then as your business really goes to scale like yours is now, utilising software to do auditing checks, if you like. So you're getting certificates that you know are accurate, that if there are any gremlins in them, you can sort them out. You know, it's all good. And it's good advice for employers to be looking towards. There's a lot of software out there, not just to do with day-to-day management of your business. There's all these certificate packages you can get now. There's so much help for electricians, and maybe there's a few old dinosaurs, and I include myself in that to a point, that need to get more with the times and utilise it to grow their businesses and maybe create more employment rather than less.
Yeah, I think it is key. It's key for scaling. There's nothing wrong with how you're doing it. Like a lot of the old school guys I still know have good companies. There's a company called T Squared, which is run by my kind of uncle, which is £100 million turnover. He is very, very old school. No marketing, no social media. I mean, they do have like a help desk and they have like a kind of system in place, but he goes out, sees people, sees clients, sees all these guys working. It's totally different and all their paperwork comes back and somebody processes it in the office. And so there is still people out there that are still doing really well, but they've been around for maybe 20, 25 years. I'm just going from my side of it. If I didn't have the software and the processing in place, I would never be where I am just now. And I think that's even more so with if you've got learning disabilities or you've got any kind of things that hinder you going forward. Use other things to help you get by the things that bring you back. I think for us, if it wasn't from the software, we wouldn't be where we are. But again, if we didn't have the teams that we have, I've never had to pay anybody off. I've never had to have a word with anyone or anything like that. Everyone is good. So I think, again, that's down to me being nice to them being nice to everybody else in the company and having just a good atmosphere in work.
Yeah. It's been absolutely brilliant to chat with you about the apprenticeship system and see all of your experiences, how it's helped you get into this trade first and foremost, and how you've built your business, and tips and advice for both apprentices and employers. Yeah, and as well as the element of things being different in Scotland. I've really enjoyed chatting with you. You've certainly taught me a few things just in this hour-long chat. Is there anything else you would like to add before we tell people where they can find you if they want to get in touch with you or learn more about Quinnergy?
I think obviously you need to be yourself. There's nothing that you're going to take away from somebody that's going to get you in a position or make you better than what you are. The only thing, you are the only person that's going to make yourself better. You really need to want to do what you're doing, and as we keep saying about it, be proud of who you are, what you're doing, and thrive to be better at it. Find if you want to go this way and set up your own business, then you need to find a niche market, or you need to find a niche client that you want to be going after, and then brand it well, promote yourself, and just stick to that. I think that's a good point. Once your apprenticeship is gone, while you're in the apprenticeship, is again just be respectful and just want to learn. I think even when I was at college, it was all about being cool and hanging about and all the nonsense that was going on in the background, and I wish I stuck in a bit more, learning some of the things, but you do learn it over time. You just need to stick in.
Yeah, great stuff. Where can people find you then and find Quinnergy? Where's the best place for them to get in touch with you? Is it over on Instagram or LinkedIn? How can people learn more about yourself and Quinnergy?
So we've obviously got our website, quinnergy.co.uk. We also have all our socials. We have our Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. All the company has a page. Personally, I've got a page I've got a profile on LinkedIn. I think that's how me and you chat most of the time. You can find us all in there. Our Instagram, we try and showcase our kind of funny stuff, what what we come across in bad installs, how we try and fix them. We're into cars, we're into sports, different things. So we put all that on there. And on LinkedIn, you've got to be a bit more professional. Sometimes I struggle with. I sometimes struggle being professional on my personal page on LinkedIn, but I think that's just showcasing who you are and what you stand for. And I think don't let anyone take that away from you. Just be yourself. And I think people buy from people, they don't buy from our things. So if you can promote yourself through your brand, then if people like it, they'll use you. If you don't like it, don't bother with them. Don't try and change their minds. Just concentrate on what you're doing and be the best at what you can be.
Yep, great. I'm going to close out on that because that is fantastic advice. Thank you very much for coming on, Craig, and thanks for your support and kindness through my little venture with this Apprentice one-to-one thing through the course of 2020. I really appreciate it. And anytime you want to come back on for a chat, you're more than welcome. And we've actually got one of your apprentices on in the new year, so I look forward to speaking to them and finding out if you are a decent employer after all.
You'll probably get a different story off the Caitlin, but hopefully not. And just to finish off as well, I think what you're doing is amazing. I don't think a lot of people are actually giving you the support that you kind of need. It's maybe catching on a bit now, but again, generally we're all busy. So it's took my time to reach out and get onto it, but I think there should be more people helping you and trying to do their wee bit. So I think more people should be reaching out for you. So you're doing a good job. So thank you.
No, nice of you to say so. So thanks again, and we'll catch you all on the next one. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed this podcast, and go subscribe on YouTube and follow it on Podbean. Thank you.